starting with Mr. Shaun Evaristo. So Shaun is from Gen 2 Family Dance Crew. He's the co-creator of the company from WSPA alongside Pat Cruz, and he's an international teacher for the past 15 years, and he created the dance brand and professional dance studio Movement Lifestyle. In the industry, he's worked with brand collaborations with Airbnb, Dance for La La Land, and for Justin Bieber's Believe World Tour. He's choreographed and creative directed for many artists in K-pop, J-pop, Chinese pop, Thai pop, all the pops, basically. And fun fact, he also just married his wife, Ai. Now, sitting next to me, Keone and Mari. So you probably already know. But Keone and Mari Madrid are dancers and award-winning choreographers, storytellers, and creatives, global instructors, and most importantly, husband and wife. Notable work includes starring in and choreographing for Justin Bieber's Love Yourself music video, NBC's World of Dance, several music videos for BTS, if there's any ARMY in here, The Ellen Show, So You Think You Could Dance, Flying Lotus, Kendrick Lamar. There's a long list, okay, so I'm just going to skip over. Most recently, Keone and Mari have published Ruth, the first ever dance book, a multimedia experience combining dance, writing, illustration, music, and video, which debuted top 8 on iBooks and Google Play. And they also directed, choreographed, and co-produced their first full-length theater show, Beyond Babel. Babel, right? There you go. Babel, first ever, theater show, Beyond Babel, that Broadway world heralded as a truly spectacular theater experience not to be missed. Yeah, let's give them a hand. It's okay, it's totally fine. All right, to my left. So this is Buddha Stretch and Henry Link, and I asked them for their bio, and they wanted to keep it really simple. And honestly, this says it all. They really are just two guys from Brooklyn, and they were there at the beginning of hip hop, and they're still there, and they're still here. Yeah. Let's give it up for Buddha Stretch and Henry
Link. And we love Fat Burger.
They just had Fat Burger for lunch. They're feeling real full, satisfied. Cool. So to start things off, let's just start with basic definitions from Stretch and Link. How would you define hip hop?
Like that. See how quiet it got? That's how we define it. Hip hop to us is like breathing. It's part of life. It's our lifestyle.
Having inner peace, helping others prosper.
Oh, I see. All right, on the right side, where does urban dance come from, and how would you describe it?
I think that's a loaded question. Am I going for it first? You started. You spoke first. Well, I did write something.
I'm prepared. Good.
Kind of, not really. So, for me, my first influences for, I love hip hop music and I love hip hop culture. When I think about urban dance, I'm not thinking about the culture itself. I'm thinking about the approach to movement. So I showed this to Link maybe 2 years ago or a year ago, something like that. At what is it? Fair Play? Was that last year? Yeah. Here's what I wrote. A fusion of movements and styles with roots connected to hip-hop dance and culture. This approach is usually set to a sequence of choreographed movements and not subjected to a specific genre of music. Did I say that clearly? Was that? Sorry, I tend to mumble. And that's what I wrote.
Great, yeah. So it feels like hip-hop is a style and a culture, and the organizing principle has a lot more to do with the people, and the approach to dance is where urban dance comes in, right? So the organizing principles of urban dance are more so it's choreographed. Is that what you're saying?
I'm speaking mainly from my experience, but yeah, I like heading more towards an approach of it. Yeah.
Keone, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I think it's hard to put like hip hop definition and urban definition in the same form because hip hop is a lifestyle. It's a culture. It's fashion. It's music. It's people that went through a lot of things, and that's not like at all. It's just different. What we're derived from. And we're talking about like how would we define this? And if I were to say, like, going back to your experience of someone going up to you and saying, "What style of dance do you do?" We've all been there. We always do the urban or the hip hop because you don't know, you're not 100% behind that. And I think at some point back in, what was it, in our community's been around a long time. This show, what edition is this? The 19 years? That's crazy, 19 years. And the community goes further back from that, of even 30 years beyond that. And I know Anna and Arnell can attest to how deep its roots go. But it definitely started with hip hop as an inspiration to what choice of movement they wanted to dance with, right? It wasn't like we're being hip hop, we are choosing to dance, or they were choosing to dance to hip hop music and to do moves that they saw on TV. You know what I mean? That's where, like, we're on the West Coast. We weren't on the East Coast, right? And so I think at some point, people like Shaun decided to dance to like a really slow song and changed everything, like with choices. And you saw that, and you saw a lot of people be inspired by that. You saw people like KJ Gonzalez, who did a barrel turn and was like, we could do that? That's okay? Like, what? You saw people like Tassandra Chavez, who was like a contemporary choreographer dancer who's in love with hip hop movement as well. And so you have naturally through competition, I mean, we're here at a competition, is you have people who are from different backgrounds, different likes, different aesthetics, and they start fusing together because they want to win the competition, so they're trying to be original in some way. You have theatrics that are getting put into it. You have, things that are inspired by Broadway, by Michael Jackson, by Gene Kelly, and really artists just wanted to do what they thought was, what they really liked the most, right? And so being kind of like, I guess, kids of that, being like around that, watching from afar, we were so confused with what hip hop was. You know what I mean? Like I was confused, and it was, I would say, like maybe when this whole camp culture started, this whole dance camp culture with like people from all over the world in Europe and in Asia, would come together from all parts, and for me personally, I feel like I walked away from those years of, taken from Link or from Wiggs or from any of those guys that were like, what I now see is like the authentic root of hip hop. I walked away from that saying, okay, I am not that. In terms of what I embody, and then sort of having to go through a rediscovery of like what this thing is. And so you had camps like Urban Dance Camp or Fair Play or other camps in those realms that were trying to figure out what to name these camps, because you had people like myself, Mari, Lyle Beniga, Shaun, all the people that would go to these camps, and it's a mix, it's a pot of movement. And so what do they call it? And urban dance camp, urban dance was thrown out there to title it all. And so a lot of us were like, yeah, I think I identify with that word in terms of the versatility of the word, and not being pinned down to hip hop, because really hip hop was, breaking and party dancing. And sometimes I want to throw a barrel turn in there. Sometimes I want to dance barefoot. I don't know. It's
Not necessarily hip hop.
Right. So I know this is a long-winded answer, a super long-winded answer.
It's thorough. That's good.
But I'm just going back into like how the context of where we're at, and I guess if I were to tell like Mary Sue from Kansas like what urban dance is, like, again, I kind of went the Shaun route and wrote something down, but urban dance is a kind of movement derived from hip hop that is fused with other dance styles from populated city areas. So that's kind of
That was
what
beautiful.
we're running with.
All right, let me preface this by saying this. I'm going to make some people really uncomfortable. He knows, that's why he's laughing. I'm the bad guy here. He's the good guy. He's good cop, I'm bad cop. For those that don't know me, just Google Buddha Stretch and Google my logo. You'll get it. But let's get past the semantics here. Look at the definition of urban, okay? Google the definition of urban. If you Google the definition of urban, then you'll understand why, when you use the term urban, that it means the exact same thing as hip hop. The exact same thing. So this is, you know, as she said, it's semantics. The idea here that you have to label things is foolishness, okay? First and foremost, at Urban Dance Camp, we were told that we were freestylers and those guys were the choreographers. Yeah. Now, I started my first choreography in 1984. Most of you didn't exist, you were still DNA at the time. I did choreography for a multitude of different artists from across the spectrum, from across the world. So for someone at a dance camp who had no idea who they were talking to, much less what they were talking about, to sit and tell me what I do was foolishness in of itself. But first and foremost, I had to inform him that I'm not a hip hop dancer. Let me say that again. I am not a hip hop dancer. Link is not a hip hop dancer. I'm not a house dancer, I'm not a popper, I'm not a locker, I'm not a b-boy. I'm a dancer. I can do all of those things. Dance first, style second. If you can't dance, you can't call yourself any of those other things, can you? So those labels are useless. So this is a game of semantics that we go through consistently because people are uncomfortable, very uncomfortable with the actual truth. And when you face the actual truth, you'll find that once you're out of your comfort zone, we all grow. Yay!
We had this talk in Chicago, and I told Shaun, sitting at the end of the table, no, you are hip hop. Why would you think you're not hip hop? Just because if you do ballet, don't mean you're not hip hop. That's just the dance style you choose to do at this moment. Your lifestyle is something totally different. Your dance don't define you as a style, as you being part of the culture. I know many people who don't dance hip hop are 100% hip hop. So this thing about, and I told him then that urban dance went through 6 different names. Reason why? Because you didn't know what to call it. Street jazz, jazz funk, jazz fusion, LA style. We can keep going on because nobody knew what to call it. And the best thing to call it was dance. You were dancing. We've done videos, we've done shows. I danced with Debbie Allen. That wasn't hip hop, but it was dance. The style is second. It's never first.
Yeah.
Respond. For sure. Like, we all sit at the table saying, like, we would prefer not to have labels, right? I think the thing is, like, when you come across, like, the masses, in our experience of, like, going on a TV show, like, So You Think You Can Dance.
Not this one.
Yeah. And they want to call you hip-hop, or they want to call you lyrical hip-hop.
But the problem, sorry to cut
No,
you
for
off.
sure, no.
But the problem is when you go on these shows and you don't correct them, You left them saying what you are. It's your job to correct them. You have to be the one to say, excuse me, you're wrong.
Boogaloo.
Right. Right.
Pop and lock.
No, for sure.
Boogaloo.
So you have to be the one to say, no, you're wrong. If you don't say it, they labeled you as it, and everybody who's watching start to call you that. You have to correct it.
Just Jim from the block.
No, for sure. And I wish it were that easy, like in terms of our experience working with, masses like that. But,
We had the conversation at Urban Dance, and what I told you,
yeah.
they're hip hop to me. They do other styles, but they're hip hop to me. From day one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that hip hop is actually a lot more inclusive than what other people kind of assume it to be. And it's also, to your point, like semantics are kind of for other people. Like we kind of know what we're doing, but it's when other people try to put some sort of label and some sort of word to it that it gets confusing. And then, so I'm wondering more for these guys, what has your experience been like trying to correct these people or trying to be represented correctly in the media?
It's hard. It's an ongoing battle, and we try to, for instance, me and Mari, when we went on World of Dance, and Mari, maybe you can elaborate too, but just like our experience and like, we knew our opening number would be like footwork heavy, and we would, ultimately the whole competition, we were just gonna dance. We were gonna do our thing. But if we have an opportunity to also explain a little bit more, give a little more specificity to what we do. So, and then the following number, we did a whole folk Hosier song. And then, in the last number, we did a Frank Sinatra song, and the movement was all over the place in terms of style choices. So it gets hard. It gets hard to say what is what. But, the masses need something to identify, unfortunately, even though we all tell ourselves that we're just artists and dancers at the end of the day. But I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Mari.
Yeah, I think also a lot of it was, I think we kind of went through a time when we were teaching at these events where we felt like we kind of went through an identity crisis almost, because we were like, wow, I don't feel like I am hip hop, and I don't feel like I'm genuinely 100% in that culture, and I respect it so much because that's what I learned as a child, and I idolized so much that it just felt like we were kind of veering on a different thing. So I think that's kind of where that split happened. And then, yeah, you're right, there have been a million different names for it because we're like, what is this? But it comes from, I think, a genuine feeling that we're a little bit like there needs to be a differentiation. Yeah, and then especially when you get into context of like you're on television and having to have conversations with producers who know nothing about dance, and you're trying to represent the best way that you know how. So I guess that's where we've been coming from. Shaun, you would add?
Yeah, I just, something comes into my head of SDK, which is another camp in Europe. And at that table, and I talked to Link about this last time, was that there was some discussion with the OGs were at the camp, and I was sitting at that table, and it was a discussion of this is hip hop and this is not. And I felt like, ooh, am I comfortable? Do I fit inside of this picture? Do I not? And then sort of like the thought came into play of, if it's not a bounce, a rock, a roll, a skate, a groove, then it ain't hip hop. And so that's where I had to understand, okay, well, I don't do all of those things inside of the choreographed sequence that I create. Sometimes they are in there and sometimes they are not. So this thing that is being labeled onto me, which is urban dance, I never denied or confirmed. I just felt like, oh, well, that sort of fits me. Well, so I will, to me, that feels comfortable, right? Because I want to respect the line of hip hop. I don't want to push away from it. I feel connected to it. But if it's not those things, then essentially I am something different, a derivative. And again, just trying to fit in, because when I push inside of what I know to be hip hop, I feel like right in the cusp. There's a connection, but then there's a slight difference. And of course, the saying, I don't do hip hop, I am hip hop. I actually agree with that. I am hip hop. What I do though, I feel is a little bit different. And obviously it's a little bit harder to explain for me. It feels newer, but I don't always, I have the ability to teach foundational movement or explain that in my classes whenever I utilize, but not in all times am I inside of a bounce, rock, groove, skate, or roll. So that's where the separation happens for me. Not the separation, yeah, because again, it's not about separating or being away from it. It's about respecting the line.
Right, you mentioned the bounces and rocks. Stretch and Lee, do you have anything to add about the technique of hip hop?
All of what you guys are discussing, bounce, rock, skate, roll, wave, those are all techniques. That's how you identify what the dance is, so you know what you're looking at. It's kind of simple once you start identifying. It's just basic awareness, and it's not that big of a deal. I think the problem here is there's way too much overthinking. You're creating a problem that actually doesn't exist. Because again, I'm gonna say this again, it's all dance. Right. You can call it urban dance, there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with urban dance. The problem here is, and let's keep it 100 as we say in the hood, is when you denote urban, matter of fact, let me just do this. It's much simpler than me running through this nonsense in my head. All right, here's a dictionary. Here's the dictionary definition of urban. In relating to or characteristic of a town or city, the urban population. Built up town, city, inner city, densely populated, townified, cityfied, metropolitan, suburban, non-rural, municipal, civic, borough, informal, towny, townish, rare, opinion. Crime rates are significantly higher in urban areas. 2, denoting or relating to popular dance music. Here's the problem. Associated with black performers. A party that features the best in urban music. Another one, denoting popular black culture in general, i.e. an urban comedy. Origin, Latin, urbs, urb equals city. Latin urbanus, early 17th century. So let's go backwards. Here's the problem that I'm going to bring up again, that this is why it's overthought. The association with blackness, okay? Everybody wanted to be a part of it, but nobody wanted to be black. And therein lies the pain in the discussion, okay? That's why it's being overthought. But here's the real problem. Guess what? Black people don't care. We don't. And I know I can speak because if y'all all been to the hood, black people do this. We don't do this. We say, come on, let's party. Because that's what this is, a celebration of us being together, our togetherness, our differences. You know, all black people don't look alike. I don't care what movie you saw or who told you that. We look differently, we speak differently, we dress differently, and it's all inclusive. And if you start from there and you remove the whole idea that you have to be black to be hip hop, then you're good. Because let me put you on a little secret here. At the beginning of hip hop, there were non-black people, plenty of them. And here we are 40 plus years later, and guess what? There's still a lot of non-black people. It's an all-inclusive culture. The whole idea of hip hop is to include the differences. You throw everything in the pot, you mix it up, and you hand it out and see how it tastes. And everybody puts their thing in the pot. and we share it. That's what makes the culture grow. The problem is when you just take from the pot and you don't put nothing back in it. Those are what we call culture vultures, and as I teach in class, I throw chairs at those people.
Thank you, Stretch. That was beautiful. So, yes, round of applause. Sounds like there's two distinctions to be made. One between hip hop and urban dance, or the lack thereof, and the second question of is urban even the right or correct term, or is it even the best term? I think that's where it's important to say, you know, because it's gone through so many potential titles, and then we landed at something that felt right. It's more of a proper noun than the literal way to describe what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more so a label that we had to put on something rather than this is literally what it describes. Kind of squash the overthinking.
It was a marketing term.
Exactly, a marketing term. Yes. But yeah, going on the whole thing, I actually want to share something from, I interviewed Stretch last year, 2 years ago, and going off of your last point of hip hop being all inclusive, I remember you made an analogy to different races and like country and borders, and I want you to share that with everyone.
Just to keep it simple, okay, we have multitudes of different people from different ethnic backgrounds and everything. But everybody here has 2 eyes, don't they? Does anybody here have 4 eyes? 5? Anybody have 3 arms? Anybody have 16 toes or 15 fingers? We all share the same tools, correct? Okay. Everybody, I'll assume, uses the toilet the same. I mean, if you want to stand on your head and pee upside down, that's on you, but we all pee and you know, number 2 the same way. So we're all from different places and different backgrounds, you know. Everybody uses different ethnicities or different races, but at the underlying thing is, before you get into you know, black, white, Asian, Latin, whatever, before there's actual race, there's the human race. You know, you start from the human race and then you break it down. You know, just like you start from dance and then you break it down. So we have these divisions that are thrust upon us because when we're children, we don't know that these divisions exist. Okay, our children play no matter what and no matter who, no matter what shade, no matter what color, creed, ethnicity, you put children together and they rock out. The beat drops and they all do the same thing. They all want to share their love for what they're doing and who they are. That is the ultimate thing here, and that's what the problem is. We're so caught up in what we've been brainwashed to believe, conditioned to believe, when in actuality, it's nonsense. We all start out the same way. We're all going to end the same way.
Thank you, Stretch. Mar, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking of an instance which is a little, no, it's very negative, that happened at a camp where someone from our generation, her class was interrupted by someone from an older generation who went on a microphone and said, "This isn't hip hop." So when things like that are happening, you see how it's confusing. And
it's not inviting sometimes.
Why it would feel like, okay, we're not part of this. We have to be something else.
Surprise, we got the same thing.
Oh. Hey!
Hey, hello. Yeah, so we got the same thing. We know what you go through. That's why we're here to tell you, no, we don't agree. We don't agree with it. Because, you know, you can't define somebody by dance to a culture. You can't. It's impossible. If you love dance the same way we do. Yeah, so we went through what you're going through. We still go through it.
We were the commercial dancers first. The B-boys used to say that we weren't hip-hop. Right. Think about that. Let's think about that. I'm going to say that again. The B-boys used to say that we weren't hip-hop. Exactly. That's exactly the response we gave them. What are you talking about? I don't see you in the club. Yeah, so that's our point. We've been through the same thing. You know, we were told we weren't hip hop. You have to, first and foremost, believe in yourself and what you do and stand on your own 2 feet and let your actions speak for you. I was told that I wasn't hip hop, that I was a commercial dancer, that I didn't, I was also told that you can't do multiple styles. I'm gonna say that again. I was also told that you can't do, no, not that you can't do multiple styles, you can't mix the styles.
Yeah.
You can't mix them.
Why not?
It's like oil and water, except it's not. Because nobody eats stew and puts oil in the stew with water, and no. There are certain oils that you can mix with water, like vegetable oil, cooking oil, you know. So I get it. I get the whole idea of people telling you and making you feel like something you're not. But that's all in your head, and that's only if you give those people power over your thought process. We were told the same things you've been told, and we're sitting here now telling you differently. And those people that used to say those things about us would sit here with you now and tell you differently.
You have to prove them wrong.
And ultimately, that's all that counts. You have to stand up again on your own 2 feet and do what you do and do what you want to do, what you love to do, and share that. And what other people think doesn't matter. Because when I dance, I'm not dancing for the other people. I'm dancing for the music. And we know the people who, I kind of I can kind of guess who it was that walked into your class and was running his mouth, but we're going to leave that out of this conversation.
Because that person told me the first day I met Meryl, that person told me, oh yeah, you need to go check her class out because you know, she's not really hip hop. I went, I watched, I took, and later and told her to her face, I told her myself, you are hip hop. Don't worry about what nobody tell you. Am I correct?
You did.
And even before that, she used to take my class, so that person don't know what the hell they talking about. Let's start there. So yeah, again, if you allow these people to dictate who you are, then you are what they believe you to be. Okay? You are what they believe you to be. You dictate who you are. You say what you do. And go on about your business. You know, the thing about hip hop that's lost now, and primarily because of the internet and people being able to hide behind, you know, pseudonyms, is ultimately in the beginning, hip hop was about show and prove. You're only as good as what you can do, not what you say you can do. And that's lost. And for us, that's how we've always been. That's how we've, you know, maintained, is we don't talk about it, we're about it. You know, we do it, and then we discuss it. So that it's an action. You know, that's the beauty of hip hop. It's an action. The hop part is the action. The hip part is the awareness. And if you allow people to dictate your actions, then guess what? You're a puppet. Cut the strings.
Anyone here needed a sign that you don't need permission to do the thing you always wanted to do? This is it. Yeah? So thank you, Stretch. So it sounds like every one of the panelists has a core understanding and a core love of dance, and it's a lot of the environment and that kind of dictates these experiences. And it sounds like they're very similar, it's just happening in different chapters. And I might even argue that, you know, urban dance was made possible because of technology. You know, like people sharing their work, you have more access to things that you could never see before because you had to be in person to see them. And so, yeah, I know Keone and Mari, you guys have done a lot of things that no one has ever done before, including, you know, the ebook, Ruth, and Beyond Babel, and so many other things. And again, no one really gave you permission. So I guess along the same lines of dance being dance and dance staying dance, but things changing over time, where do you see urban dance evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Man, it's already changed so fast because of technology, like you said, because the kids nowadays are monsters and it's crazy to see the level of talent. And I think it'll continue to do that. I was actually asked this question by someone else. What do you see in general, like dance in the next 5-10 years? I feel like, man, the amount of information that is accessible to the kids nowadays, in 5 to 10 years, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, these kids know all the styles and are able to jump from salsa into contemporary, into hip hop without changing their clothes and skipping a beat. You know what I mean? I feel like that's pretty much where it's going, so I could see it being like that. I would hope that, kind of going back to the conversation of like, I think we're on the same page as dancers and artists, but maybe like going back to like being an educator, this is the one thing that maybe I'm a little afraid of, is that like you start to, there's a lot of times where people will walk into a class, they'll learn choreography and they'll peace out. And that's like the relationship now in classes, or the video is put first, like the select group and all that stuff. And the education is getting lost, and I'm afraid in the next 5 to 10 years that as maybe the talent and the skill level will grow, the like education to what you're actually doing will dwindle down, because you're not even getting fed knowledge, you're just getting fed physical movement that you can very much emulate. So that's the only thing, and maybe part of why we care so much about the conversation of urban and hip hop and contemporary and all the other styles, is that as an educator, when we get up there in front of a room of people that, you know, really are looking for information, it's our job to make sure that we're trying to deliver that as best as possible. What a coupe turn looks like, and a first position into a groove, like what does that look like? And how do we explain that in a very respectful way to every style? So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Where I see this going, I think living in LA, it's really cool to see the dance culture shift towards music and making their own music and becoming the artist. I think it was like that in the past, and then somehow changed, and now that I'm seeing a lot of artists just transition their, you know, dance and turn that into music and then incorporate that. That's what I'd hope to see, so that way we're not backup dancing for the artists, we are the artists. And then we can share, we can spread our culture to the masses and educate them properly, because we are the ones who are in the limelight. And I would hope to see that in the future, where the young generation that is from the community can be in that top spot and open the door for the rest of our culture to shine.
Of course. I think also just all of the new things and resources and technology that does exist that the younger generation is so good at utilizing, just using it in a way that spreads soulful art and connection. And I also would like to add that I hope that live dancing never goes away. I think that that's something that's so important that needs to be preserved and enjoyed, events like today, among other things.
Right, yeah. Keeping the integrity of dance, whether that's us being in charge of our own narrative as dancers and artists, or, like you said, like being able to dance with someone face to face, right? Jacqueline, do you have anything to add?
He doesn't like to talk. He talks with his feet, so that's why he's. But I'm gonna hand him the mic anyway. You got to talk. That's why you're here.
What I would like to see, I would like to see the teaching aspect come back. Because right now, the teaching part is missing. I see the choreography part super high. You walk into class and you start with 5, 6, 7, 8. There's no warm-up. There's no knowledge of what's going on or what you're about to do or where it comes from. And once this is lost, we'll never get it back. So I would like to see that come back. Because if you're a teacher, there's some information you got to give them, not a routine, because when they leave that class, they go to the next class, learn another routine. By the end of the day, they know nothing. And you got to tell them the history, because there's a lot of people that slaved and paved the way for you to be here to do what you do. So they got to know where it came from in order for it to go any further. Got to get back to actually teaching. That's it.
I'm tired of sitting up, sorry. First and foremost, 5 to 10 years, I just pray I'm still here. I didn't see any of this when I started. I wasn't trying to see any of this when I started. I did this just for girls. And I know that sounds funny, but that is the absolute truth. For me, I just think it's fairly, it's, at the end of the day, do what feels good. And as long as it feels good and it ain't hurting nobody, continue. You know, have a good time, because it's gotten way too serious. You know, it's way too serious. Like, the dance, this is the ultimate form of communication. This is the original social network, okay? Before, you know, the internet and cell phones and text, this is how people got to know each other. This is what started the conversations. That's why it's based in the party. And I think we need to get back to that, you know. It's really nice to use the technology, but don't allow the technology to use you. You know, technology is a tool. It's not the end-all, be-all. The end-all, be-all is the person you see in the mirror. You know, use that. That's your first and your biggest tool. And, you know, just spread love. That's the Brooklyn way. Peace.
We have to wrap up soon, but I have one last question for all the panelists. We already kind of started on this tip, but you know, since this panel is for the audience, what is one call to action that you want each person to walk away with from today? Anyone can start.
I didn't hear the question.
One thing you want each audience member to do.
One thing I want you to do is to dance with each other, not at each other. You know, if you do that, it'll feel good. It'll be good. Everything will be all right. You know, that's it for me.
Keep it 100. It's time to end all the fakeness. Keep it 100. If you don't like something, it's not for you. Say it. You know, a lot of people are sharing on people and then later be right behind them like, yeah, that was whack. No, tell them. How do they get better if you don't tell them it was whack? Keep it 100.
Sorry, I just gotta take this. I just gotta say this. This guy, this is all he does. If you know anything about him, he's never going to play the game of your comfort zone. So if he thinks you're terrible and you ask him, he's gonna tell you you're terrible. So don't ask if you don't want the truth. Because he is going to give you the truth. But I'm only bringing this up to say that get out of your comfort zone, you know. Get that. That's where the learning is. That's where, you know, growth comes from. Is don't believe your own hype. You know, when I started, people told me I was the best. Then I met this guy, and he was doing the stuff that I made up better than I did.
So get you some real friends that will call you out.
If something doesn't exist, then make it.
Tweak up. Beautiful.
No, maybe ask why. Like, with everything. And hopefully that'll lead you to, if you're thirsting for knowledge,
If you're looking for it, ask why. Like, and ask. Don't be afraid to research. I think there's like, many people are probably like, oh, this is the first time that these guys have sat at a panel before. No. We've been doing this for a long time. We've had they've been doing it longer than us. We've been sitting at dinner tables in a hotel in Poland, having these conversations till 4 in the morning. And it was all because we wanted to know why, you know? So don't wait for someone to feed you the information, go get it for yourself.
Explore the self. That's kind of the one thing that I really enjoy. I like to tinker. I think the exploration of the self will lead you into where you're going to go next. So, yeah, do that.
Thank you so much, everyone. So I wish that we could sit here forever and keep talking about this, but we are out of time. But the cool part is that you guys can, because the whole point of this panel was to spark curiosity and encourage you to continue the dialogue from here on out. And you already took a huge step by showing up and being here and listening. So thank you so much for partaking in this conversation with us. And I think, so round of applause for everyone. Everyone really wants to clap, so.
It's hot.
Yeah, it's really hot. You guys got through it. I see everyone sweating. But yeah, so I think what's awesome about today is that, yes, we had this panel, we're talking about history, we're learning, we're diving deep into things, but at the same time, we're also creating history, right? Because if you haven't noticed, body rock is a pretty huge deal. And one day, people are going to be talking about today, and you're here. So maybe one day you'll be sitting up somewhere and sharing your story, and just want to make sure that it's a good one. So there's tons of stuff going on today, so I want everyone to go and savor everything that PNG and Body Rock has graciously put together. So go savor every moment, and let's give one last round of applause to our panelists.